Okay, so my friend Andrew and other speakers have touched some very detailed aspects of biotechnology. So I suggested to organizers that maybe somebody, and I volunteered, which unfortunately they said okay, we should step back and look at the broader picture, especially it's such a very vast field. So I have the fortune of being the editor-in-chief of a journal called Biotechnology Advances, which the mandate is to look at the current developments and future trends of biotechnology, all aspects of biotechnology. It has an impact factor which is very high. It's the fifth of 159 present biotech-related journals at present. What does that mean, hyper? It means it's very, very cited all over the world. That's why it has impact factor reflects. So I have that opportunity to take the opportunity to talk this in this topic. It's an industrial branch of biotechnology, but I'll hopefully in the next few minutes show that it relates to other branches of biotechnology. Now, industrial biotechnology, like all technologies today, have some geopolitical backdrop. In this case, the drivers has to do with governments who want to have national energy securities. But it has to be balanced about the effect of these energy sources, which is petroleum basically, with environmental pollution, which gives disease, cancer and so on, and also climate change. So some of these buzzwords there are in the headlines today and all the news media. The second driver is that, what can we do about that? If it's coming from petroleum-based feedstock, maybe we should be looking at, as Jason pointed it, the plenary speaker today, maybe we should be looking at renewable biomass for manufacturing. And of course, with these conundrums, you could see it's going to lead to a lot of dilemmas, a lot of controversies, and last but not least, hype. So when you read all this stuff now, so much of it is hype. So this is why I'm very proud of my journal, to try and look what is hype and which is okay. So for an ideal industrial world, as the plenary speaker implied, if we could use renewable resources. Oh, sorry, I will come back. The biotechnology, of course, would be the technology would be benign, appropriate for this recycle. We could produce all these products through biomass. If you burn it with carbon dioxide, the ultimate energy of the world is sun. By photosynthesis, we'll bring it back into renewable. If you eat it and you burp or you do whatever, carbon dioxide, and it goes back. So this is why we call it an ideal green industrial world. How realistic is this? Just 2 years ago, and I think I look at the last information from the US government, it's the same. We are still using 85% for greenhouse gases fuel. Petroleum, natural gas, coal. At that time, it was thought that maybe nuclear energy might have a big part of the pie, but you know what happened in Japan, and again, the geopolitical thing went into. So it didn't move on 8%, which they were hoping to increase. Environmentalists, like I am, we're hoping that we'll have a bigger part of the pie in renewable energy is only 7%. Unless when you read the newspaper, you hear about solar energy and wind energy. It's a minuscule, because wind, for example, is 5% of 7%. So I guess we are trying to say, as biotechnologists, can we do something that we could increase the renewable energy part of the pie? You think about it as students, because I'm retired, I can't do any more. Well, of course, we have to look at the major roots of biotechnology to see if there's something that we could do within biotechnology. So the roots are basically on biological sciences and engineering technology. That's why, of course, it's called biotechnology. And in the biological sciences, very big component, as you've heard from these presentations, microbiology, molecular biology, biochemistry, genetics, etc. There's a lot of work still to be done in the roots. It needs some nutrients to get better roots. So I'm encouraging students, look some more in some exciting inventions in the biological sciences. For the engineering compartments, they have to work with the biological sciences. They know about processing, they know about fabrication thing, they know to do mathematical modeling, they know how to do scale-up things. It is really a multidisciplinary field. It cannot be synergistic unless you recognize this. And this was one of the problems many years ago, because everybody was having their own silos, and we couldn't get technology. We only have a lot of science. We have a few Nobel Prize winners. None of them are millionaires. You know that. They're bright guys, but they don't know how to do business. It's socioeconomic, as you mentioned in your talk. The major branches of biotechnology. I zeroed in on industrial, but I would just like to step back and say they're all intertwined now. You look at those examples that I put in brackets. Every time you read a newspaper, now you hear about gene therapy. Now, why did you have to think about gene therapy to help cancer? Why didn't you prevent the cancer to begin with? So it has to do with, because we have pollution. Can we prevent this pollution that would not cause a cancer? So we have to look at gene therapy. And by the way, many people think gene therapy was a medical thing. It was, the restriction was engineering. It had to do with, who of you are my engineers, this is a mass transfer problem. Then you say, well, why don't we have fuels which won't cause these types of pollution, biofuels? Sounds a great idea. And in fact, one of my students, the two students that I speak, talked about her master's student, and she's looking at one of those. So how are you going to make this biofuels? It has to do with agriculture. It's got to do with these renewable resources, which I showed in the diagram, to be recycled. So it's all increasingly interconnected now. And this is why, of course, this new center that Kathy's is so important, because it's trying to show the confluence of all these areas of biotechnology. And it's quite unique, because when you start thinking about Waterloo, what's it unique about it? What happened to Toronto? Well, well, most of them are because they have medical schools, are more medical oriented. We have a broader base to look at. And in some ways, it's a good, fortunate that we don't have a medical school, because we could have our eyes be more open, no blinkers. in those universities, and I happen to know the president at Western, and I know the vice president in Toronto before they set up. He said, yeah, you know, these guys are from the medical schools. They're so powerful, they push us to medical type stuff. We don't have this pressure within Waterloo. In manufacturing, I'm applying to encouraging the students now to look at all these components to make a product, or made to, as Trevor might say, to treat a pollution. It's very important, the biological agent, because they do these genetic manipulation. So you could make a lot of discovery in that areas. The pre-treatment, as we said, we could have, everybody talks in the newspaper about cellulosic ethanol. Well, you know that God or whoever is the creator didn't make cellulose to be very easy to confirm. All the log cabins will fall down. So it's a very big challenge for the biochemists and of course the engineers to find a way to convert cellulose to sugars so that it could be young. Down processing, again, the chemists are very important because a lot of the separation is coming there. Look at this. If you had a stroke tomorrow now, we have to get you to the hospital within 4 hours, right? Because there's a drug which is called TPA, just a million pounds. If you get it, then of course it will remove the clot in your brain or wherever. Over 4 hours you're dead or you're paralyzed, unfortunately. That drug has to be FDA 99.999, 3 nines pure. How could you do that? You got to look at the downstream. So we might feel great, you know, with genetic engineering, we did the bioreactor, but the soup that comes out of the fermenter has to be purified. And so in some biotechnology processes, it's 80% downstream. And a lot of researchers in university, we don't do too much research down that area. Kind of a crazy. 80% of production is there, and yet only the chemists are looking at good chromatography thing and so on. So in our case, we can't do everything in this little group. In fact, our group is not so large, right? There are 5 of us, 6 of us. You see all these in these groups, they have 1,000 people, right? So we concentrate on looking if we know about the cell inside to manipulate it to produce the products we want. Bearing in mind there are a lot of processing to be involved in that as well. So recent examples that we have in this group we call the biomanufacturing group, which is Perry Chu is not here, is a leader. We just recently had a patent, and somebody talked about therapeutics with you over lunch. It's very important to have new therapeutics. This one, which we just patented about 2-3 months ago, got the patents anyway, would address a lot of autoimmune related diseases. And it's also good for preventing rejection of organ transplant. No, you're very young, most of you, but a lot of people like me, we're thinking about, oh, if my kidney and my lung or my heart, we need a transplant. But we know the frequency of rejection is very high. Because of the drugs they have, it's not so good. Ours have gone through the rats as it should do. Chimpanzees, all the chimpanzees are still very happy at Stanford University, at Erlangen University in Germany, and Western University. So of course to get FDA free, you have to have all these very expensive things. Fortunately, we have a US company which is paying for all this. I think each chimpanzee said costs about $10,000, and there are 6 chimpanzees, so a lot of money. Again, as aspect of what I'm stepping aside, we got to have some good connection with sponsors, industry. And Waterloo is very good at doing that. The second thing is the clean biofuels. Lamis talked about, the last speaker, about bioprotanol. But we're also looking at biobutanol. When you go to the gas station, you see up to 10% of ethanol in there. In some ways, it's crazy. How can we do that? It's so uneconomical. The only way you could do it, you and me, taxpayers, through the government subsidy. Canada, the US, everywhere else. Because we're all scared about energy security. We don't want to have this. So we're looking at these others. Finally, aspects of novel bioreactors. GE Healthcare has effectively given us a permanent loan of one of their bioreactors, which are disposable. We don't have these big steel tanks anymore. These are plastics which are pre-sterilized, and you could throw it away and start again. So at the end, I'm trying to appeal to you to remember that biotechnology is a very multidisciplinary field, and we need all the biological sciences, the biochemistry, engineers, to get into this area of D so that we could get products that can be done. Thank you very much.